So Barbados, Cave Hill, Wells Gap, that is what we're going to do. And with Ronald Toppin as your parliamentary representative, I am telling you, he is going to lead the charge to make sure that every good opportunity will be made available for our children. And so tonight I want to bring you our warrior in the field of education. His name is Edmund Hinkson. You could not want a better, more solid person than Edmund Hinkson. He's a lawyer by profession, but Edmund has a heart of gold. Edmund has pledged himself to service in Barbados across many fields. He's a member of the Lions. He is a person who has worked with the people who are physically and mentally challenged. He's represented and defended them. And he is our spokesman in Parliament on issues of education. And let me tell you something, Barbados. You can look forward to the policies of the Barbados Labour Party that we are going to bring to be able to turn education around. So tonight, Barbados Labour Party, put your hands together for Mr. Edmund Hinkson, my neighbor down in St. James North, Mr. Edmund Hinkson.
Good night, comrades of the Barbados Labour Party. The countdown has started. Parliament has been dissolved. There's no more than 90 days for the destiny of the Democratic Labour Party and of this Prime Minister of Barbados, who has led the worst government in the history of Barbados. I am extremely happy and proud to be tonight to be here in Montgomery, St. Michael North, together with those who I brought and others from St. James North, who I have the tremendous pleasure to have represented for the last 5 years and who I look forward to representing in the next 5 years. But I am extremely happy to be here to speak on behalf of my good friend Ronald Toppin. I've known Ronald for about 45 years. We went to the same school. Ronald Toppin is the kind of individual who we are proud to have offering himself to the people of Barbados and to this constituency since 1991. He is one of the longest serving members of Parliament ever of St. Michael. He, together with our political leader, Mia Amor-Motley, the next Prime Minister of Barbados. Ronald has served as a member of Parliament in this country for almost 25 years. There has never been one iota or allegation of malfeasance, abuse of office, or lack of integrity against him. He has been an attorney at law since the 1980s, practicing law in this country, except for the 9 odd years that he was Minister of Government. Ronald, you have never heard that Ronald has wrongfully withheld money from any client, whether he was old, had disabilities, or whatever. Like a member of the Democratic Labour Party in a central constituency, who had a court order for that against him. You have never heard that Ronald drove any vehicle given to him by any person who he gave a contractor in his ministry, like what at least 2 government ministers have done in breach of the Prevention of Corruption Act that the Democratic Labour Party has refused to bring into force as law after passing it through Parliament. You've never heard that Ronald carted away any money in any overseas bank account as a minister. You never heard about him accepting a bribe. You never heard about any judgment for owing money being registered in the courts of Barbados against him as a DLP member of Parliament in a central constituency in St. Michael got done on the 10th of January 2013 when he happened to be a minister of the government. Ronald is a man of the highest integrity, and you in St. Michael North, I have no doubt, will continue to have him serve as your Member of Parliament after the next elections. We in the Barbados Labour Party, in fact, we pledge as one of the first orders of business to bring into legislation, finally, integrity legislation. As you know, we have a draft of it on our social media for your comments, because we know that the people of Barbados would love to see some politician lock up for malfeasance. This kind of foolishness of carting away your taxpayers' money can't continue. This country that we love so much and that we are so proud of, but we are ashamed of the government, is in social economic crisis after 10 years of Democratic Labour Party governance. Our foreign reserves are only at about $340 million, 6 weeks of foreign reserves. The Democratic Labour Party has brought our sacred dollar at 2-to-1 under serious threat of devaluation. The country is one of the 8 highest indebted countries in the whole world, with debt to GDP ratio at 146% odd. This is unsustainable. Our candidate, Ryan Strong, the next Member of Parliament for Christchurch West Central, has brought statistics to show that the average Barbadian is $60,000 worse off now than he was 11 years ago when we were in office. This is the position of Barbados after exactly 3,700 days of Democratic Labour Party rule. Our economy is smaller now than it was in 2007. This Democratic Labour Party, under the member for the next constituency, the Minister of Finance, who Lee Rowe will deal with, and who under the Prime Minister has now brought about to try to fool you, the people of Barbados, its 7th attempt at an economic rescue of this country. All the previous 6 have failed. There's no reason whatsoever to believe that this 7th will succeed. It has no implementation plan, as both the trade unions and the private sector have pointed out. It has no priorities plan. It is just an election gimmick that should be dismissed for the worthless paper it is on. There's no reason to believe that this, the worst government in the history of Barbados, will succeed in any rescue plan of Barbados. The Caribbean Development Bank has said that Barbados has the worst performing economy out of all 19 of its borrowing member states. The LP is incapable of giving you hope or leading you to a better life, you or your family. There's no vulnerable mother, no unemployed person, no bright youngster who has been able to attend the University of the West Indies because of the imposition of tuition fees. There's no person with disabilities. There's no elderly person who has any hope in that economic recovery plan that the Democratic Labour Party brought to Parliament last month. This country is in a crisis of confidence simply because of the lack of political leadership of the Democratic Labour Party. We have seen over the last 10 years an administration that has been incompetent, that has been corrupt, and that has been callous. They don't care a thing about you, your grandmother, your child, or your great aunt. And they need to be voted out of office whenever this election is called. And the Barbados Labour Party needs to be given an overwhelming mandate to lead this country's recovery over the next 5 years. The education system of Barbados is symptomatic over the last 10 years of the economic and social decay which transcends the landscape of this country. The Minister of Education, this minister has been by far the longest serving Minister of Education ever in this country. He has been Minister of Education throughout the whole 121 months that the Democratic Labour Party has taken so far. His legacy as the worst Minister of Education ever in the history of this country will be the one who oversaw the imposition of tuition fees on poor working class Barbadian students. That ought to have been a criminal offense for which all the Democratic Labour Party members of Parliament who voted in favor of that in the budget in 2014 ought to be imprisoned. That is the truth of the matter, because you prevented poor people from going to the highest level in terms of their educational potential. When 13 of the 16 of those Democratic Labour Party parliamentarians would not be where they are today in terms of parliamentarians and in terms of the careers which led to their parliamentary life, but for you, the taxpayers of this country, paying for their university education. Because none of them earned it as of right. None of them were that bright that they won any Barbados scholarship or any Barbados exhibition or anything like that. All of them, you, the taxpayers, paid for their education. You and your parents and your grandparents. And then they had the audacity to impose fees now on your children and grandchildren to go there. And as a result, the University of the West Indies student population among Barbadians fell by 40%, over 40% in 3 years since they imposed fees in 2014. They didn't even allow those who were in time to get out to finish the degree. So therefore, students had to drop out of university. In St. James North, we said this is not fair. And we found the money for them to stay in. Most of those, in fact, all of those who were in university, we said, look, you got to stay in the extra year and try and finish if you really want to. And those that wanted to, we helped. Some still dropped out, said that they couldn't afford it. The other legacy of this Minister of Finance has been the absolute increase in school violence, one of the primary social problems in Barbados. Trial on child violence, child on teacher violence. Every week, sometimes 3 times a week, something happening somewhere around the schools of Barbados. And this Minister of Education not having one absolute clue to any solutions to this problem. In fact, he admitted that, because last month in Parliament, during the estimates debate, he called on Cynthia Ford to come and help ease his burden and help him with this problem. But the people of Christchurch, East Central, and the people of Barbados can ease his problem absolutely and totally within the next 90 days by removing him as Member of Parliament and his party as the government of Barbados. So his answer for an ease in his problem will soon be found. He promised to establish a committee to examine child violence. 2 years ago in April 2016, no such committee has been established. A do-nothing minister as part of a do-nothing cabinet. He promised as well in June 2015 during the budget to set up a commission to examine how we could continue to fund tertiary education in Barbados after his government has brought about a $200 million debt owed by the Barbados government to the University of the West Indies that has it sinking on its knees right now. No such commission has been established, because we could tell him how we're going to fund the tuition fees again of the University of the West Indies. Mia Motley has pledged again that that will be one of the first acts of Parliament on day one of a new Barbados Labour Party administration, with God's will, that we will again find the money from the state to fund the education of Barbadians. Because don't fool yourselves, Barbados could never have afforded free university education. Yet, for over 50 years, from Errol Barr right down, to tell you the truth, to David Thompson, we found a way, because we believe that it's a priority, that it is something that made Barbadians stand head and shoulders above other Caribbean people in terms of educational quality and other people from small developing countries of a similar size and nature and political development of Barbados. This Democratic Labour Party has not built one single secondary school since it came into office 121 months ago. As a result, there's been a bottleneck in terms of secondary school allocation of children. The Louis Lynch School closed. They have no replacement. And this is one of the problems that we face. There has been no U Polytechnic, and you will recall that in the throne speech of 2013, the Democratic Labour Party promised to build a polytechnic in the north that would, of course, have helped service my constituents in St. James North. You have not heard about such a polytechnic since that throne speech on the opening day of Parliament when I first went into Parliament in March 2013. We will again in the Barbados Labour Party place emphasis on technical and vocational training of your children to develop skills to enable them to find a job or to employ themselves and their friends and their family and their communities, and to give them hope and fulfill the aspirations of these young people that have been lost in these 10 years of abysmal failure of this Democratic Labour Party government. The Barbados Community College, another post-secondary educational institute, is in complete turmoil under Ronald Jones' ministerial responsibility. He has not changed the chairman. The chairman, like him, has been chairman throughout. The two of them together, total disgraces in terms of what they have combined done to the BCC in terms of its decline in educational quality and the morale of the staff and of the students. We've seen the closure of the Alma Parish School for special needs children and children with learning challenges, which filled the gap in the educational system of Barbados. A school opened up under the educational ministerial mandate of Mia Motley and Cynthia Ford as her parliamentary secretary, closed without any explanation, reasonable explanation, and without the teachers being duly informed. We pledge again to open up the Alma Parish School to fill that gap in terms of our educational system when we, with your will, become the government of this country again. This country, because of all of this, because of this mismanagement and do-nothingness and reactionary position of the education minister, has declined 16 spots in 3 years between 2013 and 2014. And 2016, it has declined from number 6 in the world in terms of quality of education, now to number 22, declined 16 places in 3 years, according to the 2016 World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Report. Our educational system is no longer the pride and joy of the Caribbean. It is no longer the first among equals in the Caribbean. But this is so throughout all aspects of our economy, whether it's health, whether it's sewerage, whether it's collection of garbage, social services, whether it's distribution of welfare to the most needy in the country. This is what we have come to under 3,700 days of Democratic Labour Party mismanagement and callousness, incompetence and corruption. The Minister of Education, he's declared war on the teachers and their unions, refusing on many occasions continuously to meet with the unions. If he isn't cussing the unions, he's calling the children demons. But then what do you expect from a person who in Parliament spoke about the concept of cutting off heads and slicing off throats? What else do you expect? He clearly does not care about special needs children. Clearly, because his treatment of a constituent of mine, a 7-year-old child with cerebral palsy, who I wrote to him about in October 2016, asking for the ministry to just fund her education at the Early Learning Stimulation Center off Robert Street. I asked for the ministry to just pay $700 a semester towards the education of this child, whose parents, who doesn't have any natural parents to look after her, and who is under the guardianship of an aunt who is unemployed. $700 a month in a situation where we have had free education for children at primary and secondary school level, starting from the 1950s. And he refused to fund it. $700 a month, sorry, $700 a semester, $2,100 a year. And after 10 months writes me back telling me that I have no right, it is not my place as a member of parliament to write him on that matter, that doesn't concern a member of parliament. So I really, really feel sorry for the people in Christchurch, East Central, as to how he treats them. If he's saying that a member of parliament has no right to write to a minister of education asking for funding of a child with cerebral palsy who is from an extremely poor background, a mere $2,100 a month, when the Sandy Lane Trust funding the majority of her school fees at the Early Stimulation Center. And then telling me that he would respond by writing the parents of the child, which he has not done yet, a year and a half after I first wrote the letter, and still saying how the ministry cares about its special needs students. Absolutely not true. This Barbados Labour Party pledges to bring in a new generation of young people, competent, capable young people, multilingual, global citizens who can make a living everywhere in the world. We will give young people a brighter future. No child must be left behind. We will create an educational and social environment whereby every child will be given the opportunity to fulfill their complete potential. We will formulate a policy on the public education of children with disabilities and with special needs and learning difficulties and behavioral challenges where there's no such policy now. We will establish a framework within which we will give them the right to education without discrimination and on the basis of equal opportunity, which does not happen now. We are fully confident that under the Prime Ministership of Mia Amor Motley, we can provide the solutions and fix the problems and the economic and social malaise of Barbados. Mia has been Deputy Prime Minister of this country, a member of Parliament for almost 28 years, starting from the time she was in the Senate, a quarter of a century as an elected member of Parliament, winning by a bigger majority on each occasion. She has been Minister of Education, she's been Attorney General, and this present Attorney General could not even stand at her knees in terms of comparison. She's been a Minister of an Economic Ministry, Minister of Economic Development. She is ready at this stage to take over the leadership of this country. We need your votes to give her that opportunity and to give the Barbados Labour Party team the chance. We will work hard in your name. We will serve you. We will fix this country. I thank you.
Let us hear it for Comrade Edmund Hinkson.